it's okay to give clock cues when you're giving directions. Say something as, something's at 3 o'clock, we all know that's going to be your immediate right. 12 o'clock straight ahead. It's okay to give those clock cues. Everybody understands that, what a clock cue is going to be. And one side note about giving the clock cues, which we just kind of happened in our role play, if you're giving a person a clock cue, give it to them in their orientation. Because your 3 o'clock is not the same as their 3 o'clock. Just like his left wasn't my left, earlier. So remember that the way they're looking at it is the way you would give those cues. Now, there's all types of equipment, technology that people that are blind, visually impaired use. There's the GPS systems out there for people just navigating the street, which are really kind of cool, very helpful. For people, they have software on the computers that can either read what's on the screen to them, such as JAWS, or enhance what's on the screen, such as Zoom text. Another thing to remember, and I see this a lot when we meet with the blind community and that type of thing, is that if you can provide information to people electronically, that's really a preferred method, because I don't know how many meetings I've been at where they don't think about these things in advance, unfortunately. So they'll come to a meeting, they'll pass out the hard copy of the minutes. They'll say, okay, well, let's take a few minutes and a few seconds or a minute to review the last meeting's minutes and approve them. Well, if you're blind and you don't have any technology with you, how are you going to read those minutes? So in a combination where someone read those minutes out loud. But a better way to address that would have been to send those minutes out in advance so the person can read it at their leisure and in their own method that they want to read it. Same thing with a PowerPoint presentation. If that can be sent in advance to the individual, then that's a good accommodation for the person. And speaking of PowerPoint presentation, a mistake I see made so many times is a presenter is talking, and whether you might not know or you may know, there's people with visual impairments in the audience, and they'll say something like, now, as you can see from graph 3, there's a slight improvement in the numbers. Well, if you can't see graph 3, how's that going to help you? So if you just more information. If you can see from graph 3, the numbers went from 14% to 19% last quarter. Whatever. Again, access to the same information that people that are sighted would have in that kind of situation. I mentioned earlier about you see it on the public transit system, the verbal announcements. It's interesting because there's a discussion going on now in the blind community about especially the newer train cars. It's interesting because when the doors close, there's all kinds of alerts. There's a flashing light, like you see this on the red line a lot. There's a flashing green light that the doors are closing. There's the announcement then there's tones the doors are closing. So the doors are closing, but there's no alert per se that we're recognizing that the doors are opening. Like you're standing on the edge of an L platform and you're blind, the train cars pull in, it's sort of a quiet door because they're new, and so it's kind of difficult to get oriented to where the doors are, but if there was like a little tone that those doors were opening, that would be very helpful. Now, I have seen some new cars like that here in the city, but overall, they're not. And I know that's a situation that's being addressed right now within CTA, but just something to think about. Another thing, and when you talk about people's orientation mobility that are blind, the new hybrid cars. Because people, learn to cross the street when they hear the flow of traffic. They go with traffic, so it's okay to cross the street. Well, if you can't hear the car, and they're very quiet, how do you know it's okay to cross the street? Or this quiet car is turning right. This hybrid, this Prius is going to turn right, while you're trying to cross the street. So these are issues, and I know that issue is being addressed on a larger scale, with the hybrid car makers. But again, just some issues that come up in the blind, visually impaired community. Next
question.
Yes, question. Go ahead.
I know you said for hearing impaired, they did not like that, but then I did say you did say visually impaired. What's your take on that, or is?
Well, I think because the deaf community, deaf culture is so ingrained that that's considered an insult. the blind community do not, mobility impaired, I don't hear, we use that. I don't hear people having a problem with that. Visually impaired, not a problem with that. But I do hear that opposition in the deaf community to be called hearing impaired. Now, there's some factions in the deaf community that say that they're not even disabled. Because their culture, they live in their culture, they don't have a disability. But the thing about that, if you want to say that, then you have to have a disability to be protected by the ADA, so it's sort of like a catch-22 there. But for the most part, that's just, it's really sort of having to do with the deaf culture, the deaf community themselves. Like I said, other disabilities doesn't seem to be an issue that I can tell. And like I said, we freely use impaired, and we're sensitive to the issue about the deaf, hearing impaired, so we don't use that because we know the opposition to it. But as far as the other disabilities, we will use that. Okay, now, mobility impaired. Now this is people that they might use walkers, wheelchairs, canes, crutches, all kinds of devices. First and foremost, remember, that's considered their personal space. So don't be grabbing the cane, moving it around, just trying to do the right thing, just want to move it out of the way, or push someone in a wheelchair without their permission, because that's considered touching part of them, and you have to respect that. Now, I've seen some situations where a person will get on the bus that's blind, they'll have a cane, and they'll sit in one of those seats near the front, so they'll sit down, and their cane might slide down. They put their cane next to them, they might slide down, and now it's a tripping hazard. And maybe you want to be a good Samaritan and just move the cane back for them. Don't do that. But you can alert the person, excuse me, sir, I don't know if you know your cane has slid down. And if that person had any common sense, they would move that cane because anybody would appreciate any tripping hazards being out of the way, right? So it just makes sense. And common sense made me think about what we say when you're interacting or assisting a person with any type of disability. We call it the 3 C's: communication, courtesy, and common sense. Really basic customer service principles, right? Communication, courtesy, and common sense. You really can't go wrong with that. So I talked about with the mobility impairments. Now, when you talk about people using wheelchairs and walkers and so on, that's when you really get into the physical accessibility, of an area or an environment. And there is all kinds of guidelines that cover the physical space. The Americans with Disabilities Act has accessibility guidelines. Those are the federal ones. There's an Illinois Accessibility Code, for instance. The Chicago Building Code has a chapter, 1811, covering accessibility. And we actually have an architect on staff and a compliance officer that makes sure that when the developers are bringing their plans into us, that they follow all of these guidelines, or which one, kind of is stronger than the other one, and that kind of thing. So we want to ensure that these facilities are being built accessible. And you guys, I'm sure you're very familiar with the concept of universal design, something that's made for ease of use that different types of disabilities can benefit from. It's interesting, some of the things that are considered an accommodation for people with disabilities, people without them can benefit from. Something simple as a curb cut, right? Great for a wheelchair, but what if you're pushing a baby stroller? Wonderful, right? Skateboard, whatever. Automatic doors. Again, person with a mobility impairment, wonderful. Have to be carrying groceries? Even better.
It's a question.
Yes, question.
If you notice that there's a curb cut is damaged,
yes.
Is there an office that can be reported to rather than just reporting it to 311 when nothing happens?
Well, the way the city has it, don't say that.
It takes forever for it to happen.
The way the city sets it up is, the way it should work properly is it goes to 311 and then that goes to CDOT.
Okay.
And if you wanted to, you can contact our office and talk to our accessibility compliance unit, but we would just refer that to CDOT because that's their area, of the curb cuts, maintenance, and that type of thing. But yeah, just like potholes and that type of thing, 311 is the best route to go, but there are other, like we would be a resource there too, but we would just address it with CDOT.
Another question.
Yes.
You have these federal, state, and local rules.
Mhm.
Are they complementary? Do they come in conflict with each other? What?
It's really, no, I don't want to speak out of turn too much because, that's not my area of expertise per se, but I think we try to balance it out as a department, try to balance it out that what makes the most sense for accessibility, what's reasonable for accessibility. Now, you would have to talk to our compliance officer about how they make that decision, but we kind of weigh all three of them and make the look. And obviously, as we're doing that, we're thinking of who's it going to benefit. It's going to benefit the person with the disability. And I think, honestly, I think that's what's great about our compliance officer uses a wheelchair. He used to work with the Department of Justice, so he has a lot of knowledge in that. And just a sort of an editorial comments as we're talking about that, we have our architect, probably unlike any department of its kind that, like us, throughout the nation, meaning that serves people with disabilities, local government kind of thing, we have an architect on our staff. I bet that doesn't happen anywhere else in the U.S., that architects for accessibility, they're all in their building departments, right, or something like that. And I can understand that. But I notice it really helps to have the person within our department, because not only does he educate the people that bring their plans in on what the guidelines are, the physical accessibility, the standards of the law, but also the spirit of the law. Why is something done like this or done like that kind of thing? Because you want to include people with disabilities. Integrated seating is a perfect example. You go into the newer movie theaters, right? There's wheelchair spaces, a third of the way down on the left, or near the front in the middle. Because now a person that goes to the movies, they have the choice to sit there or there or there. As compared to back in the old days where, we just have this space in the front of the room where you can sit. It's a walkway. Or the space in the back of the room where you can sit. Really, again, it's just a walkway. But now people are integrated into, and I think it's important for these developers and architects to hear that, because you give people a choice. Instead of saying, you can only sit here, you're restricted to only sitting here, that type of thing. So again, those guidelines, I don't know if you guys have seen those guidelines, the ADAG, the ADA guidelines, but they cover every aspect of a built environment pretty much that you can think about. Even the thickness of the carpeting, because if it's too plush, a wheelchair can't really roll across it. The minimum and maximum height to make like a desk or a counter accessible, because they can't be too low, and that would make them inaccessible. Where braille signage goes on an elevator, how many parking spaces, accessible parking spaces in a parking lot, dimensions of an accessible restroom. So many things. The slope of a ramp, how much pressure it takes to push a door open. All of these things are covered in these guidelines. And just a quick note about two of them I mentioned, the accessible restroom and accessible parking spaces. Now the accessible restroom is interesting because I don't know how many times I've been into a men's room and it's somewhat crowded. It could be at a ball game or whatever. But none of the guys want to go into that accessible restroom. And I don't know if it's because of they see that wheelchair symbol on there, right? So they're not going to go in there because it might be impeding someone else that might need it, whatever. No, it's okay to use that accessible restroom if you don't have a disability. Now, you can deny access, don't deny access to a person that needs that stall, for instance, someone in a wheelchair. But otherwise, it's okay for you guys, or you women, whatever, to use those accessible restrooms. Well, I always say, they're not storing plutonium in there. It's okay to go into that restroom, again, but don't deny access. Now, we're talking about a whole different thing when we're talking about the accessible parking. You can't just park anywhere you want to park, right? Now, what's interesting about the accessible parking is, what a lot of people don't realize, I think sometimes even people that have the disability placards or plates, what they don't realize is that large striped area there at the next to an accessible spot, that's there for a reason. It's not there for overflow traffic. It's not there for storing snow when they're removing it from the parking lot. A person pulls in with their lift-equipped van, right? The door opens, that van comes down in that striped area, that space. That's why it's there. So people can exit and enter, from their vehicle with that ramp or that lift. I don't know how many times I've heard stories about how someone will park in that striped area thinking it's not going to harm anybody. Yeah, maybe somebody that's in the store shopping comes out, now they can't leave because they can't deploy their ramp because there's a car parked in the way. So that's why it's important to keep that space clear, all the time. Like I said, we even have to talk to, large parking lot places, malls and stuff like that, that don't just put snow, just don't pile the snow there, it's there for a reason. And actually, even individuals with the disability placards or plates can't park in that striped area like that because that's an illegal parking spot. Just like the fire hydrant situation, or longer than a 15-minute tow zone, you can't go into them. Those are illegal spots, so you can't do that. Now, I want to talk about people with cognitive disabilities, or I've heard referred to as intellectual disabilities by a lot of the experts in this field lately. Now, that could be anybody that might have a learning disability, meaning perhaps because of the disability they have trouble with their intake of information or how they process that information or their output of it. Or that could include someone with a developmental disability, which means maybe because of their disability they have trouble, difficulty understanding verbal cues or nonverbal cues, social interaction situations, that type of thing. Now, for many years, people with developmental disabilities were called mentally retarded. And I think we know, let's not say that word anymore. I mean, it's so offensive now, it's called the R word, so just drop that. Developmental disability will be more appropriate. But either way, either kind of cognitive or intellectual disability, my advice is to be age appropriate when you're interacting with that person. Age appropriate. Now, let's say you happen to be interacting with somebody that's clearly an adult, they're probably 30-ish if you had to guess. But they're behaving or speaking somewhat like in a childlike manner. Well, you do not want to respond back to them like they're a child, because they're not a child, they're an adult. But what you might need to do is you might need to alter the way you interact with that individual to make sure that you understood them and they understood you. So then the onus is on you. Because that's how you level the playing field for the information or interacting with that person. An example. I did this training last year for some of the city's administrative hearing judges. And I just said, well, take some words that you guys use on a daily basis and find an easier way to say it. Adjudication, deposition, defendant. Find another thing to say. A couple years ago when I trained the wheelchair assistance people out at O'Hare, what words do you guys use every day at the airport that you can find an easier way to say? And, concourse, that's the hallway. Concessions, that's food. Itinerary, where are you going? Just that way, so if you break it down like that, it makes it easier for the individual to understand. And that always leads me to, I always like to talk about that when you kind of level things off like that. I'd like to talk about CPS as an example. For years it was called the Office of Special Education. Now it's called the Office of Diverse Learners. Now that makes more sense to me, diverse learners, because what you're saying is you have students with all kinds of different learning styles, and it's up to the school system to adapt to those learning styles so that individuals have an equal opportunity to learn like everyone else, like their classmates. See, so diverse learners makes more sense than special, because I have to tell you, our office, we're not crazy about using that word special in that context. Special education, special needs, because that means you're talking about special people. They're not special people. People with disabilities just want that equal opportunity. No special treatment, just equal treatment. And sometimes accommodations have to be made to have that equal treatment. So special, we're not too big on the use of that word like that. People with speech impairments. Patience is the key. Let the person finish what they want to say. You might be wanting to say something very, very important. They have the right to say that. You listen to them. You might need to ask them questions back to make sure you understood them properly. Their response might just mean yes or no. Or again, you can go to simply writing things down or pointing to pamphlets, brochures, paperwork, whatever. Kind of break it down to the easiest way to communicate if you're having difficulty understanding the person. But again, patience, person has the right to finish what they're trying to say. Then there's that broad category of hidden disabilities. Now, to some degree, what I just talked about were hidden disabilities. When you think about it, see a person that's deaf walking down the street, how do you really know that? A person with a visual impairment that doesn't have a device, how do you really know that they have a disability? True, but I'm talking more about people maybe with a heart condition, epilepsy, chronic fatigue syndrome, cancer, someone with AIDS. I mean, there's many, many things. And the reason that that's the biggest category, when you look at the definition of disability under the ADA, it states that it's a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life activity. What does that mean? Well, major life activity for all of us. Walking, breathing, hearing, seeing, talking, self-care, right on down the line. So that's why it opens it up to a lot of things being considered a disability. So how do you interact with a person that has a disability you only know about? Well, just go back to that communication, courtesy, and common sense. A person might be asking you or behaving in a way somewhat that seems out of the ordinary, but maybe they're doing that because of their disability. So you would just interact with them accordingly. The last thing I want to touch on is something that I feel that's extremely important. That's terminology. Because the words we use say a lot about how we feel towards people with disabilities. I already talked about it at the beginning, handicap. It's not a good thing to say. Forget about that. Because think about it, handicapping in sports, horse racing, golf, bowling. What does that mean? Coming into that competition, you already have something uneven. So you have to handicap it to make it even. See, so again, it's that sort of, that negative vibe, there's something better than something else. You're starting off with that premise when you say handicap. Better yet, it's a person with a disability. They don't suffer from, afflicted with, a victim of, stricken with a disability. It's a person that has multiple sclerosis. See, they call it people first language, meaning first and foremost, it's a person that happens to have a disability. And in reality, you really don't need to say people with disabilities are brave or courageous or inspirational. Because people with disabilities are just trying to live their lives like everyone else and want to be afforded that opportunity. Again, leveling the playing field for individuals. Be careful of using that word normal when you compare a person with a disability to one without. Because think about it, to say, well, he doesn't walk like a normal person, or she doesn't hear like a normal person, pretty offensive to me, so don't use that normal comparison. But on the flip side, it's okay to use a common expression that might seem like it's relating to their disability, but if you're not trying to make fun of the person, it's okay to use it. For instance, I know people that use wheelchairs that say, well, I'm going to run in the marathon this weekend. Right? It's a common expression, it's okay to use. I know people that are blind that will say, oh, I saw that movie over the weekend. Right? They experienced a movie, but say, I saw it, that's fine. I will tell my coworkers that are deaf, I'll say things like, did you hear the announcement that the mayor made the other day? They're not offended by that. They know what I'm trying to say to them. Did you get the information from that announcement? But it's easier to say, or natural to say, did you hear the announcement? No problem there at all. And you want to be careful about what I call the trendy terms that are out there, using them. I've heard people with disabilities called handy-capable, differently abled. You guys may have heard of mentally challenged, physically challenged. You don't have to do any of those as well. It's like, well, what do I call a person with a disability? Their name? Or instead of saying, well, see that blind guy standing over there in the corner? See that gentleman over there in the gray sweater? Don't identify the person by their disability, because they're much more than their disability. So in closing, I think you can see that what I talked about today is pretty straightforward stuff, maybe some slight accommodations that you might have to make, and interaction with people and that type of thing, but it's basic, with that communication, courtesy, and common sense, it's just sort of basic customer service principles, if you will. I mean, nothing I talked about was very earth-shattering, so it's very, very basic stuff. And my advice, as you guys go through with planning things and transportation and that type of thing, include the disability community, because there's an old saying within the disability community that's been around for many years of nothing about us without us. Meaning, give some input, that the people with disabilities, people input on what's going on with the planning and that type of thing. I mean, we strongly believe that in our department. We have a pedestrian safety committee made up of people with disabilities. We have an emergency evacuation committee, technology, a curb cut committee, that we get the people involved, because who's going to impact the most. So feedback from the community is very key to success, because I think too many times decisions are made about people with disabilities without getting any input. So I would definitely encourage getting as much as that as you can. So do you guys have any questions for me as I've concluded? Just speak up if you do. Nothing? Well, I have some handouts for you. I didn't want to give it out in advance because I think you guys might look at it and go, I know what he's going to talk about. So you're welcome to come up and get some handouts over here. But otherwise, I want to thank you guys for your time and attention today, and good luck with what you guys are doing, and always think about including people with disabilities. Okay?